There is a moment in every person's life where they realize something uncomfortable. Not everyone can become great. Not everyone can become the person they secretly admire in their head at 2 a.m. when the room is quiet and their phone is face down. And it's not because most people are lazy, stupid, or untalented. It's usually because most people never truly cross the line. They remain on the safe side of desires. They stay on the side where improvement feels exciting but not threatening. And the truth is, you can't become exceptional while treating your skill like something you do only when life is convenient. And Togashi from the anime 100 meters is an example of this truth. Not because he starts from nothing, but because he starts with everything. He's talented and naturally fast. The world rewards him early, and when you're young, that kind of reward feels like a purpose. It feels like your life has been decided for you. It feels like you found the answer that running the 100 meters faster than anyone else can solve almost anything. That line isn't just confidence, it's a worldview. It's Togashi believing that speed is not only his skill, but his shield. That if he stays the fastest, he will be safe and no one can touch him. And honestly, most of us are living some version of that. Not with running, but with whatever you have been praised for. Maybe you were the smart kid, so you build your identity around being intelligent. Or maybe you were the creative one, so you build your identity around being naturally good at design, editing, writing, or speaking. But the problem is when your craft is built on reward, you don't actually love the craft yet. You love what the craft gives you. You love the respect. You love the feeling of being ahead. But sorry to say, that's not obsession. Instead, that's comfort disguised as ambition. Because obsession is different. Obsession doesn't care about applause and it doesn't need anyone to understand it. It shows up when the work stops being fun. It shows up when you are alone. It shows up when there's no one's watching you and you are losing. And that's why obsession is the engine of mastery, because mastery is not built during the easy days. Mastery is built when the work starts to cost you something. And this is where Togashi's story becomes brutal, because life eventually does what life always does. The real shift doesn't happen when Togashi is winning, it happens when he starts breaking. When a major race shakes him and when the simple equation he lived by stops working. Because for Togashi, running was never just running. Running was the way he kept his world stable. But when you build your identity on being untouchable, the first time you get touched feels like death. And that's what people don't understand about mastery. Mastery is not just improvement, it is transformation. And transformation always feels like losing something first. There's a reason most people never become exceptional. It's not because they don't want it, because most people do want it, but the part they don't want is what it costs. They want the identity of someone great, but they don't want the psychological violence required to become them. They want to be respected, but they don't want to be obsessed. And then comes the scene where Togashi during his training had a muscle strain. It looks small from the outside, but from inside, it's like a nuclear bomb. The doctor tells him that it would be in your best interest not to participate. 6 months of rehab is what's the best in long term, and that there is always a next year. And in normal life, that advice makes sense. In a normal mindset, it's mature. But Togashi isn't living a normal life. He's living inside a 100-meter world where a year is not a year. A year is the difference between the version of you the world respects and the version of you the world replaces. And that's when the truth reveals itself. It's not just his body that's injured, it's his illusion. It's his belief that the world rewards you because you deserve it. Because the next conversation is even colder. His manager tells him that if you are unable to compete in the next meet, we will have to let you go. And that is one of the most realistic lines in the entire story, because that's how the world works. The world loves you when you perform, and the world praises your obsession when it produces results. But the world punishes your obsession when it produces injury. And the world will always offer you a comfortable alternative, like we can keep you as a coach, or you can still be around the track, which sounds kind, but it's actually the most dangerous trap. Because comfort is never loud. It doesn't attack you, rather it seduces you. It whispers that it's okay, you tried, you did enough, and you can stop now. And for most people, that's where the story ends. That's where they settle. But Togashi isn't simply experiencing pain here. He feels the loss of his identity. He is afraid of being irrelevant. And that's why the park scene hits like a punch. Because we see him sitting there watching two kids race each other, and for a second it looks like the world is normal again. Kids are running, laughing, competing, the simplest form of sport. But then Togashi starts giving them advice. But what he says is not typical of the Togashi we met at the beginning. He does tell them about technique, but he also tells them something that sounds like a man who just got crushed by reality. He tells them that learning to deal with defeat in your life is far more important than any technique, and that even if you give it your all, you can still be defeated. It's okay if you don't win. It's not like your whole life ends if you end up losing. Speed isn't everything, so take it easy. This is the first time we see the true Togashi, not the gifted runner, but the human beneath. And when he starts crying, it's not simply due to his injury. It's the price of being willing to give up on the things on which you previously depended upon. And this is the part I really want you to understand, because this is the main point and it matters more than the anime. Mastery is not about motivation or productivity hacks. It's all about surrender. It's about drowning in the skill so deeply that it rewires your identity. It's not about letting the world shape you, not the version of you that wants to be comfortable, but the version of you that is willing to be transformed. People say they want to improve, but what they really mean is that they want to improve while staying the same person. They want to become stronger while maintaining their old excuses. And it doesn't work like that. You can't keep one foot in the old life and the other foot in the new one and expect to move forward. All that does is split you in half. It creates a life where you are always tired, guilty, and behind. You aren't completely committed to comfort, therefore, it no longer fulfills you. However, because you are not completely committed to mastery, it will never occur. You stay in the worst middle ground. What Togashi's breakdown shows is something most people don't want to face. The more you chase something rare, the normal life starts feeling strange. You start hearing conversations differently. You start seeing distractions differently. A weekend doesn't feel like a weekend anymore. It feels like a lost training. A lazy day doesn't feel like rest. It feels like betrayal. And people around you don't always understand that. They think you are being over dramatic. But they don't understand that obsession is often not madness. It's an alignment. It's the moment your soul finally locks onto something that feels real. But obsession has a cost. And the anime doesn't romanticize that cost. It shows it. Injury, contracts, pressure, loneliness. And that's what makes it powerful for self-improvement. Because this is real life too. You don't have to be a runner to live this story. You could be a YouTube creator like me, or maybe a student, or you could be building a business. And you'll eventually hit the same moment, the moment where life tests you whether you are interested or obsessed. As a YouTube creator, I feel it when I upload a video I worked on for days and it flops. I feel it when I see someone else blow up with half the effort and I start questioning whether I'm wasting my time. I feel it when I'm tired but I still have to write the script. I feel it when I'm sitting with my family but my mind is replaying my edits. I feel it when I want to quit but something inside me refuses. And that's the drowning, not the aesthetic late night coffee. The true drowning occurs when I'm not sure it's worth it anymore, but I keep going anyway. And just like Togashi, you will also face your injury moment. Maybe not a muscle strain, but a different kind of a strain. Burnout, anxiety, a financial hit, or a personal problem. Something that forces you to pause, something that makes the world offer you a safe exit by telling you that why don't you just do something stable? Why don't you just take it easy? You have already done enough. And that's when you realize the truth. The world doesn't hate your dreams. It just doesn't care about them. The world rewards results. And if you need constant validation while you are still building, you will always feel disappointed. That's why the price of being exceptional is not just effort. It's the death of the version of you that needed permission. It's the death of the version of you that could only work when it felt good. Because mastery demands reputation, and reputation is not glamorous. It's boring, lonely, and it's the same thing again and again until your brain remodels itself around it. People love the outcome of obsession, but they criticize the process. They want the reward without the sacrifice. Togashi's final transformation is not him becoming faster, it's him finally understanding that speed is not the purpose. Speed is just the measurement. The real purpose is what kind of person you become while chasing it. That's why his final answer is so powerful. He doesn't say he runs to win. Instead, he says he runs to give his best. And that sounds simple, but it's actually the highest form of mastery. Because it means he no longer needs the world to validate him. He just needs the work and the internal truth of knowing that he gave everything. And this is the shift that changes everything in self-improvement. When you no longer need balance while you are still building, your life changes. Because balance is like maintenance. Balance is what you do once you have built something worth maintaining. However, Balance is the dead weight when climbing, and that doesn't mean you destroy your health and become reckless. It just means you stop treating comfort like a right. The real obsession isn't the kind that makes you collapse for no reason. The real obsession is the kind that makes you strategic. It makes you realize that the skill is not something you squeeze into the cracks of your day. Instead, the skill itself becomes the structure of your day. And that's why exceptional people look different, not because they're better, but because they choose something that most people fear. They chose to let their work claim them. And perhaps that's the scariest part, because if you actually allow the work claim you, you will lose things. You will lose your old version of fun. You will lose your ability to waste time without guilt. You will lose the comfort of being average. But in return, you will gain something rare. You will gain clarity, focus, and you will also gain an identity built on action instead of fantasy. You will gain the kind of self-respect that no one can take away from you, because it comes from proof that you completed the work even when it was difficult. Togashi crying in the park is not a weakness, it's an initiation. It's the breaking point of the former identity. It's the moment that the skill stops being something that rewards him to something that transforms him. Because the truth is, obsession is uncomfortable, but ignoring your calling is unbearable. Not doing the work starts to feel heavier than doing it, and once you reach that threshold, there is no going back. Normal effort becomes insulting and distractions become betrayal. That's why the price of being exceptional is not just time, effort, or talent. The price is becoming someone who can handle discomfort without running back to comfort. The price is becoming someone who can give their best even when the world isn't rewarding them. The price is becoming someone who doesn't quit when the skill stops feeling good and looking good but still demands you. And that's the final truth. Most people want to be exceptional, but they don't want to feel what it takes. They want transformation without drowning, but drowning is the initiation. The skill must devour you enough to change you. Because if it doesn't, the world will shape you into someone comfortable, someone who always talked about what they could have been but never took the risk to find out. And if you're still watching this and if you're still here, then you already know deep down which side you are on. Because people who belong in the shallow end don't think about this, they don't feel this, they don't obsess over time or over improvement. But you do. And that means the question is no longer whether you are capable. The question is whether you are willing. Because being exceptional is not a trait. It's a choice you make so many times that it becomes your identity. And that is the real price that you have to pay. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.